Hello, hello. Today is March the 6th, 2024, and the Bank of Canada has just released their rate announcement. I'm joined by our good friend here, Josh. Can you tell us what to expect or what we heard from the government today?
Absolutely, Jay. So today was the second of 8 rate announcements that we're going to see this year. Nobody was expecting the Bank of Canada to make any change to its interest rate. We all know that rates have come up a lot over the last 2 years, almost a 5% increase from the low point during COVID. And the question on everybody's mind, economists and the rest of us in Canada alike, is how long do we have to live with these higher interest rates that are currently here? And the answer is found in the details. So let's take a little look at what the announcement was from the Bank of Canada today. One important line inside their statement said that employment continues to grow more slowly than the population, and that there are now some signs that wage pressures may be easing. The bank has expressed many times over the last couple of years how concerned it is about wages increasing, because as wages increase at a high level, that means people are able to spend more money. Spending more money means more demand. More demand means higher prices. And that's been a key part of the inflation that we've seen over the last 2 years. And as a result, it's been a problem. So the bank is happy to see that those wage pressures may be easing, and that it is, it's never happy to say, oh, it's harder and harder to get a job, but it is getting harder and harder to get a job, which is a deflationary pressure. So that's a good thing. So they say overall, the data points to an economy that's in modest excess supply, which is the inverse of the problem when they started their rate increases. They were talking about excess demand. So I want to show you a quick graph. I know it's small on your screen here, but it shows the inflation over the last 10 years. You can see it dip in early 2020. That's right down in here. And then also it increased quite dramatically to over 8% in mid 2022. And that's right after the bank started to lower its interest rates. The thing I want to point out on this one, though, isn't that inflation is still sitting around 3%. It came in at 2.9 in January. But what I want to point out is the difference between inflation, the headline one called CPI inflation, or the same measure, but with mortgage interest costs removed from that. The lighter teal color or teal blue color is showing that the inflation is a lot closer to that 2%, which is the target of the Bank of Canada if we exclude the mortgage interest costs. And of course, we know that a main driver of mortgage interest cost increases is the Bank of Canada raising their interest rates. So as we see the bank reduce the interest rates, and as other pressures on interest rates go away and rates start to drop, we're going to see less and less of the inflation caused by mortgage interest rates, which is really awesome. Now, we can point to one other big thing here that is giving us some good clues toward interest rates starting to drop and the bank needing to start to drop things. And that's the size of our economy. Gross domestic product is the most common measure of the economy. It's not perfect by any measure, but even a broken clock is right twice a day. And if we're comparing GDP to GDP, that comparison is as unfortunately as good as we're going to get. And there was a small increase in the GDP. It was just released a couple of days ago on February 29th. It increased from just under 0.5% in the third quarter of 2023 to 0.93% in the fourth quarter. So seeing that start to go back up, that's a good thing, right? We want to see GDP generally between about 2 to 3%. So we're kind of on track to get back there. But you know what, Jay? If we take a closer look at the GDP and compare it to another metric, which is our population, then it actually tells a little bit different story, right? A recession is defined as GDP being less than zero to 2 quarters in a row. And while it hasn't been less than zero 2 quarters in a row, so we're not in a recession at all, if we actually take a look at it on a per person basis, our population is growing right now at over 3% per year. And the GDP is under 1%. So we're actually seeing GDP growing 2% less than our population. So on a per person basis, our economy is getting smaller than it was. And that switch happened about a year ago. So there is good reason for us to feel that the economy is actually nudging toward that bad R word recession on a national basis. Quebec's already in recession officially, Alberta not so much. And that's going to give reason to the Bank of Canada, in addition to these moderating inflation numbers, to start to lower its interest rates. One quick quote here. The National Bank's weekly market watch from March 1st, so just a few days ago, says that with the economy operating below its potential, there are clear signs that the monetary policy, that's the higher interest rates, is working. However, above target inflation and sticky wage pressure will leave the Bank of Canada unwilling to contemplate lowering the rate in the near term. And when they say near term, they're really referring to the single digit weeks on that near term. And in today's announcement, this is a few days ago, right? In today's announcement, the bank said the wage pressures, they're not as worried about that. So that's actually a really good thing. So what that leaves us with is, when do we think interest rates are going to start to decrease? Pretty much anybody who's thinking it would start happening now or in April is probably wrong. But there is a lot of reason for us to believe that the first Bank of Canada interest rate drop will happen in June. Their announcement date in June is June 5th. And after that, there are still 4 more announcement dates before the end of the year. And we can reasonably expect somewhere around 1% of total rate drops from the Bank of Canada between the first one in June and the end of the year in December. So that's what we're looking at with today's announcement.
Great. Thanks for that update there, Josh. So it's great news if you're looking to, I guess, redo your mortgage, later on in this year. If you're a buyer, maybe we probably want to get talking sooner than later. Obviously, as the interest rate starts to drop, we're going to notice a big price increase on the home. So it's kind of a fine line that buyers are needing to manage right now.
That's right, because with lower interest rates, that tends to spur more demand. So anybody who's been sitting off on the sidelines while there's a fear of rates maybe even still increasing, those people will come back to market. Alberta's employment rate is really good. Alberta has some of the highest household incomes in the country. So we can reasonably expect pressure on the house prices for sure, pressure on the number of homes, and an increase in sales as interest rates start to decrease. And we do see the fixed rates already decreasing. That's usually a leading indicator of the variable rates. And with those starting to come down in June, I think we're going to be having an exciting year in Edmonton real estate. Thanks, everybody. Let's make sure you like and subscribe for our YouTube channel here. Drop a comment if you want us to respond, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.
Great.